Hello friends, this is again Dr. BALA'S. In my previous clip, I talked about how our external environment can affect our internal environment. And we talked something about the maintenance of homeostasis and the meaning of homeostasis. And I gave an example how we adjust ourselves to the surrounding environment during a hot season or a cold season or a climate. And I enumerated some of the factors or some of the variables or parameters which should be maintained at a particular level at a constant value, at least near value. I gave some of the examples like the pH, the blood sugar, the temperature, the blood pressure, the oxygen saturation, the electrolyte, all these examples I gave. And I explained the values and I told they are all mere numbers, but these numbers should be kept constant or near to a normal level. Then only the organs inside our body can function well. So for the normal physiological function of every organ, these variables, because they vary often, I call them as variables, should be maintained at a particular level. And this act of maintenance of internal equilibrium, you call it homeostasis. And I ended up in that video that even though we have enumerated a lot of variables, I said I will take two examples and explain in detail how these two variables are kept constant and what are the compensatory mechanisms. Those two variables are one, body temperature, and second, blood sugar or blood glucose level. Why I preferred these two variables? The reason is the change in temperature, a change in climate or a weather change. We daily experience this change. So it is easy to understand, and the curiosity to know what really happens will make you know things well. Next is blood sugar level or blood glucose level. India being the diabetic capital in the world, we have a lot of diabetic people and we are worried about the sugar level or blood glucose level, especially when we have a family history. So here also we are very familiar with the blood sugar or blood glucose, and we would like to know what is a normal level, how this normal level is maintained, and why this sugar level is not maintained in a diabetic person. Naturally, we have the curiosity to know. So this is the reason I have taken these two variables as examples. Apart from this, the mechanisms involved in maintaining the temperature, the normal temperature, and the normal sugar level, in spite of the variations, are entirely different. That will give an example of two different systems involved in controlling these levels. Let us take temperature. The temperature, you have two types. One is the core temperature, other is the shell temperature. Core means inside the body. The temperature we measure outside by placing a thermometer in the armpit or axillary region is called shell temperature. A temperature which we take by keeping the thermometer inside the buccal cavity or oral temperature or inside the rectum, you call this as a core temperature. Core temperature is a real temperature we measure directly from the buccal cavity or the rectum because they are in continuity with the core. That will give an accurate and actual value inside our body. What you take outside, the skin temperature, the skin is exposed to the atmosphere. So any climatic changes, any change in temperature outside, cold or hot, will definitely alter the surface temperature on the skin. So this temperature may not give you the accurate value. Fine. What is the normal temperature? The normal body temperature is, if you measure in Celsius or centigrade, it is 37 degree, and in Fahrenheit, it is 98.6 degree Fahrenheit. Anything above 100.4 degree Fahrenheit or 38 degrees centigrade or Celsius, you call it fever. If the body temperature rises more than that, you call it hyperpyrexia or hyperthermia. Pyrexia is nothing but a medical term for fever. If the body temperature goes down, suppose for example below 35 degree Celsius, you call it hypothermia. So normal temperature is 37 degrees centigrade or Celsius, 98.6 degree Fahrenheit, 100.4 Fahrenheit, you call it fever. More than 38, you call it hyperthermia. Less than 35, you call it hypothermia. So body temperature should be maintained around this 37 degree Celsius. This control of temperature within this acceptable range, the body regulates the temperature. This mechanism is called thermoregulation. Then coming to the blood sugar or blood glucose level, blood glucose is the fuel for all the cells. The immediate source of energy for all the cells is blood glucose. So that means always the blood should contain a particular level of sugar so that the cells can easily utilize them to make energy out of this glucose. If the blood sugar goes down, you call it hypoglycemia. When the blood sugar level is less, the cells will not get enough energy because there is no enough glucose in hypoglycemia. If the level goes up beyond a particular value, you call it hyperglycemia. It will produce a lot of changes in the blood vessel, inside of the blood vessel. So naturally, the blood flow to the organs may be disrupted and the organs will suffer. So when the blood sugar is not controlled, it should not go below a level, it should not go beyond a level. And this sugar value varies often. In a day, morning, afternoon, night, you eat food. At that time, the blood glucose level will start increasing. So the body should control this increase. When you sleep, you are not taking any food. The sugar level or the blood glucose level will be going down during the night time. At that time, the body should not allow the blood glucose level to go below a particular value. If it goes, the cells may not get enough sugar. This fasting blood glucose level should be less than 100 milligram per deciliter. 1 deciliter is 100 milliliter. So the blood sugar level should be below 100 milligram per 100 ml or 1 deciliter. And when you take food, breakfast, lunch or dinner, the blood sugar starts increasing actually. The glucose level is increasing. The body should control it. It should not allow beyond 140 milligram per 100 ml. So whatever you eat, your blood sugar should not go beyond 140 milligram per deciliter. You measure your blood sugar throughout the day and night. At no point the blood sugar level should go beyond 140 milligram. So if it goes beyond that, who controls this how the excess sugar in the blood is handled by the body. This sugar level we take after food is called postprandial. Prandium means lunch or food, meals. We give 2 hours for the body to handle this. Within these 2 hours, the body will try to bring the blood sugar level below 140 milligram. If it does not happen, that means the body fails to handle the excess sugar given to it. In that case, you will end up in diabetes mellitus. Now we will see how the mechanism works. First, we will see temperature. We'll take hot climate or summer. This external increase in temperature will also try to increase the internal temperature. That internal temperature I told core temperature. The skin is exposed to this external environment. The skin senses this temperature. The skin is a sensory organ, and you have got sensory nerve endings in the skin. And these nerve endings, you call it thermoreceptors. The part which receives this information, excess temperature, is called the receptor. Now what happens? This message or the signal or the sensory impulse, an increase in temperature, is transmitted through the nerves to the brain. In the brain, you have a center, the hypothalamus. Hypo means below. Thalamus is another part of the brain. A part which is below thalamus, you call it hypothalamus. This hypothalamus is the center for temperature control. You call it thermoregulatory center. It has set the temperature at 37 degrees Celsius. Like the AC compressor set for a particular temperature, the hypothalamus is set for a particular temperature. That is, our body core temperature is 37 degrees centigrade. The hypothalamus feels that the blood which is passing the hypothalamus, the temperature is more than 37. Now the hypothalamus decides what should be done. The target is the body should lose temperature so that the core temperature again will come back to 37 degrees centigrade. So hypothalamus processes this information of excess heat and decides what to do. The organs which are involved in losing the temperature here is the blood vessels which are supplying the skin. One easy mechanism of losing the temperature is by sweat. When you sweat, you lose heat. So the hypothalamus decides how to increase the sweat. So naturally, if the blood flow to the skin is increased, if the sweat glands are stimulated, more blood supply to the skin, and because the sweat glands are activated, more sweat is there. The sweat absorbs the extra heat from the blood and the sweat gets evaporated. So now the temperature comes down. How the blood vessels carry more blood to the skin? The mechanism is the hypothalamus sends impulses through another nerve to the blood vessels. The blood vessels are made of smooth muscles. It makes the smooth muscles to relax. When the blood vessel smooth muscle is relaxed, the diameter of the blood vessel is increased. So this action is called vasodilatation. Vaso means blood vessel, dilatation means increase in diameter. So now the temperature comes back to normal. An impulse from the sensory organ skin saying the temperature is high, the brain processes it. It sends impulses to the blood vessels. The smooth muscle in the blood vessel dilates, causes vasodilatation, more blood to the skin, more sweat and evaporation, the heat is lost. The blood which comes to the skin with more heat goes back into the core after losing some heat. Now this 37 degrees Celsius is maintained. This is the mechanism involved in thermoregulation, in regulating the core temperature to around 37 degrees Celsius. What happens during cold or winter season? Now the purpose is the body should conserve heat. It should not lose heat because the core temperature will start falling down, and the body should raise the temperature one or generate heat to raise the temperature. The next is it should conserve heat. Now what happens? The opposite of heat loss, now heat conservation. The blood vessels which is supplying the skin, they are constricted. The diameter is lessened, less blood supply to the skin. The body tries to keep the blood inside the core. No heat loss, heat is conserved. The next is body tries to generate heat. How to generate heat? One mechanism by which heat can be generated is by contraction of the muscles. The body sends impulses to the skeletal muscles, especially of the periphery, the arms, the legs, the opposite group of muscles. They start contracting and relaxing. This alternate contraction and relaxation generates heat. So this heat is transferred into the core. Now the lost heat is gained by the contraction relaxation of the muscles. This contraction and relaxation of muscles to generate heat, you call it shivering. Now during winter season, you start shivering to generate heat. Second, the blood vessels supplying the skin, they become constricted. You call this vasoconstriction. The blood is retained within the core. The set temperature 37 degrees Celsius is attained. This is called thermoregulation. Coming to the blood sugar control or regulation. I told the fasting level should be less than 100 milligram per deciliter. And after food, if you measure after 2 hours, what is called the postprandial, should not go above 140 milligram per 100 ml or 1 deciliter. If it goes below 100, you call it hypoglycemia, and above 140, you call it hyperglycemia. And if this hyperglycemia continues, they will develop diabetes mellitus. Now, what organ regulates this level? It should not go below 100 or hyperglycemia. It should not go above 140 hyperglycemia. Which organ is involved? The organ involved is pancreas. What type of organ this is? This organ is an endocrine gland. It has got both exocrine and endocrine part. The endocrine part of pancreas plays the role of controlling this blood sugar within this level. Now, what is an endocrine gland? An endocrine gland, it secretes a fluid. This fluid is called hormone. Endocrine means a gland which does not have a duct. The secretions are not carried by the duct. The secretions are directly poured into the blood. That is why they are called ductless glands. There is no duct. These hormones are directly poured into the blood, and the blood carries the hormones to various organs. The point is, the hormones are secreted in this gland, but the organs which respond to these hormones, not a single organ, many organs respond to these hormones. How the pancreas handles this? The pancreas has got two hormones as far as this sugar level or glucose level is concerned. These two hormones, one glucagon, the other one insulin, both increasing the sugar level to a normal level or acceptable level and decreasing the excess sugar level to a normal sugar level. Both are done by these two hormones. What is the stimulus for the pancreas to secrete these hormones? The blood glucose level decides. If the blood contains less sugar, the pancreas starts secreting glucagon. If the blood which is passing the pancreas, if the sugar level in that blood is more than 140, excess sugar in the blood stimulates the pancreas. Now, the pancreas secretes insulin. The glucagon, which increases the blood sugar secreted by the alpha cells which are present in the pancreas. The hormone insulin, which reduces the blood sugar, is secreted by another set of cells. They are called beta cells. So in the pancreas, you have two types of cells, alpha cells and beta cells. Alpha cells secrete glucagon, beta cells secrete insulin. Glucagon increases the blood sugar, insulin reduces the blood sugar. The question is, what happens to the excess blood sugar when the blood sugar is increased? Here, the liver is involved. What insulin does? Insulin helps the liver to convert this extra glucose into a storage form of glucose, glycogen. So glycogen is present in the liver and as well as to some extent in the muscles. It is stored. This stored glucose, glycogen, will be utilized by the body if need arises. What is the need actually? Suppose you are fasting. Suppose you delay in taking your food. At that time, you will feel hungry. The storage glycogen will be converted into glucose to maintain a normal level. This conversion of extra sugar or extra glucose into glycogen is done by insulin. So when the extra glucose is converted into glycogen, the circulating sugar level is maintained. As I told you, when you are fasting or the food is delayed, that blood which contains less sugar will stimulate the pancreas. Now the pancreas asks the alpha cells to secrete glucagon, and this glucagon will increase the blood glucose level by converting the stored glycogen into glucose. So this is how pancreas plays a dual role in increasing the blood sugar or blood glucose, in decreasing the blood glucose by secreting two different hormones. One is insulin, another one is glucagon. Insulin is the only hormone in the body which tries to reduce the blood sugar. All other hormones, they try to increase the blood sugar. Glucagon, thyroxine, cortisol, growth hormone, adrenaline, all these hormones will try to increase the blood glucose level, and insulin is the only hormone which tries to decrease the blood glucose level. Now we have seen two mechanisms, a thermoregulation and a blood glucose regulation. Thermoregulation, I told, it is done by the nervous system. A sensory nerve goes to the hypothalamus. From the hypothalamus, another nerve carries impulse to the blood vessels. The blood vessels either constrict or dilate. So this is like a circuit. Anatomical continuation is there. From the skin to the hypothalamus via nerves, from the hypothalamus to the muscles or the sweat glands, all the blood vessels through another nerve. So this is like a circuit. The nervous system is involved. If you take this blood sugar or blood glucose control, it is not done by a nervous system, it is done by a glandular system, that is the endocrine system. There is no nerve connection between the endocrine gland and the organs which respond to the hormones. The hormones are secreted by pancreas, but the organ which responds is liver. So we have seen thermoregulation and blood glucose regulation, both with two different mechanisms. And remember, homeostasis is maintained by these two mechanisms, a nervous control and a hormonal control. The time taken for maintaining the homeostasis level differs from nervous system to hormonal system. Let us not talk much about this, but right now, remember, we have discussed two things, thermoregulation and blood glucose level regulation. One is by the nervous system, another is by the hormonal system or endocrine system. These two are important. Now, in my next video, I will talk something about the components of this, the compensatory mechanisms. Thank you. Have a nice time.